No problem.
Okay, hi Chris. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. We had a few chats a year or so ago, and I bought a couple of your bases that you had. It was great, excellent. So,
You did, yeah.
welcome to Subbuteo-trailblazers.
Nice to be here. Nice to have a conversation with you at last instead of sending your teams.
Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, those teams went well. So I appreciate the quick sale that you gave me. That's when I first actually started playing. But this is more about you than me, of course. So welcome, and of course, Chris Thomas. You're kind of famous because you represented England for many years. So tell us about yourself and your background.
Well, in terms of Subbuteo, it's been a pretty long journey, really. So I started playing back in the 80s, so 1988.
Wow.
Um, Went along to a local club. So I'm from Middlesbrough, and there's a little town called Stokesley. And my
Hmm.
brother joined a club there. Um, so he basically got into it through. There used to be a couple of football magazines in the UK. One was called Shoot and one was called
Mm.
Match.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I know
you
those. Yeah.
might have come across them, yeah. And I think it would have been about 1986 or 87. My brother entered the regional championships. So
Wow.
he got into it. He got into it that way, and he joined this local club. And then, so I would have been about 9 years old then. So
Mm.
I went along with my brother, started playing in that club, and my younger brother then joined as well, Peter. Um, so yeah, it all kind of started there, and for me, it's never really stopped. I've never really had a break from it. Most people I know in the UK, especially all my
Mm.
friends that play, they've all like probably had like a couple of years out here and there. But it's
Mm.
just been a continuous path for me. So always enjoyed it, and it's been quite good because I've seen it through, the Subbuteo days into the
Mm.
festive days. The different changes of bases, pitches, rules. Um, it's kind of seen the whole evolution of it really, apart from maybe the table soccer days, which I didn't play in, which is a little bit different again.
Wow. So you went straight through from maybe there were the heavyweights or maybe 88 or the lightweights were coming to the
I think it
full
was
there.
yeah, it was pretty much that it was a Waddingtons were making the lightweight teams then. However, um, all the players then, or especially all the good players, tended to use the the older teams from the 50s, 60s, I guess, which would be the bar teams, the ones with the bar across them, or
Yeah,
the
the
molded
heavyweights.
ones.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so that's what I learned to play with, the heavyweight ones, and that would have been up until I think 1993. And I remember going to a tournament, which would have been my first foreign trip over to Verviers for the European Championship, and I think it was the first Fistive tournament as well. That's kind of when Fistive um, was introduced, really. And I think there was a stall there selling sports figures. Do you remember those ones? Have you seen those with the polystyrene figures?
Yeah, 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 yeah. All
Yeah.
the famous players, the other ones, or are you talking about something different?
It's a type of base which would have been it had like a polystyrene figure on top of it. Um, they're called sports figures.
Okay, yeah, 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 yeah. I think I saw those.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. Well, I remember buying a team over there, and that was kind of like they were probably the first sort of modern base, um, which were nothing to do with like the Waddington side of things, the Sputer side of things. And I played with like those teams right up until about 2006 or 2005 maybe. And I kind of realized that I needed to improve and I was using the wrong team. so, so many bases out there, and the game had changed so much that my team was just getting smashed apart on the field. so
Yeah,
yeah, so
quite
it's been a lot of changes.
quite a lot of changes happened then. Excellent. So okay, so you started playing with the heavyweights. You didn't have a break. You saw all the evolution and whatever. So what really kept you in it? Because a lot of players, after the heavyweights started kind of disappearing, so to speak, the lightweights came along, and then Waddington started to, I don't know, go in a different direction. They kind of dropped out.
Yeah.
So
I think they're kind
what kept you in it?
what kept me in it. I suppose two things really. I suppose after a couple of years, I got to a reasonable level as a junior player. I was enjoying playing tournaments and getting a few wins. So I suppose the competitive side of it kept me playing. But as I grew older, I think the social side to it has really kept me playing over the years, because you go to these tournaments and you end up going to lots of different cities around the UK, and then we started traveling to lots of different cities around Europe and then around the world. So it's given me, I suppose, the traveling aspect has definitely kept me in it. And you're going on these mini breaks with your best mates to all these different places. So I think definitely the social side to it has kept me really involved in it. But it's just a really, really good game still. I mean, I used to play computer games when I was a kid, sort of back in the 90s, playing sensible soccer, which was a really great game. But
Right.
I've never really got into the modern games, like FIFA and things like that. I've never really played them. I kind of look at those as kind of what I guess they've had an impact on people taking up Subbuteo, because that's the modern way of playing a football simulation game, isn't it?
Definitely. That's good. So you've played in a lot of tournaments. How many years have you represented England in the game?
Since '93. So that was the first time I went and played that would have been a European Championships in Verviers in '93. I think I've played in most of them since. So I reckon I've maybe missed two. I think I missed the one in Gibraltar a couple of years ago, and there was one in 2005. I think I missed. So I've not missed many of them. So I've been quite fortunate, really, to play with some great players in the England team and playing some brilliant tournaments as well. So a lot of good World Cups and European Championships, different countries. We've had a lot of fun at them.
Excellent. So my next question is going to be a hard one that I always ask everybody, because it's you played in many tournaments, so I guess it's hard to pick one. But if you can pick one or two, which tournaments are the ones that stand out most in your mind, whether it's for enjoyment or success? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the one that's going to always stand out as one of the best tournaments is Mons in Belgium. So that one's coming up shortly in March, but that's been going for a long time. So it's got a really good reputation for good reasons. So it's extremely well organized. It's attended by a lot of people. It's usually maybe 150, 200 players there.
Wow.
So you get the opportunity to play a lot of players from a lot of different nationalities, a lot of different levels. So I think for me, that's probably always been the best one. You could also argue Bologna in Italy as well. Maybe the Bologna one is slightly harder as well, because there are a lot more top players in Italy, and that's also equally a brilliant tournament. But I think I've played in Mons a lot more, so I would say that one. And also because a couple of years ago, we did really well in the team event in that one as well. So our glide, slide, chip and dip team got to the final of it. I think it was 2017, I think it was. But we didn't really expect to, because it was, I don't think any of us had practiced for that tournament, and we only had a 4-man team, so we didn't have any options in terms of substitutes. But we just had a really good day and got to the final, so kind of makes that tournament a little bit more special.
Bit more memorable. That's great. Yeah. That's excellent. And so recently you attended the World Cup. That was in September, right?
Yeah, so that was in Rome in September.
Mm.
Very good. I mean, pretty much every Italian tournament you go to is, you know, an excellent tournament because they're well organised and they've got good equipment, usually in good venues. So yeah, that was a good World Cup. We got to the quarterfinals in the team event, and we had a really close game with Italy in the quarterfinals. So considering how strong their team is, I mean, we lost as a team 2-0, but the results were close. So
Very close.
I think
And
we did well. Yeah.
yeah, I heard from Elliot. He mentioned that actually, but he couldn't remember some of the specifics. But he did say you gave them a good run for the money, which is always good to see. And how did you do in that tournament?
Individual. So I got through my group, and then who did I play? I got to forgetting now. It was last 16, I believe I got to.
Okay.
Got that right or not? Yeah. I lost to Mark Gauci on shots, which was frustrating. I had a good chance to win it in extra time, and he saved it. But Mark's a brilliant player, and he's won a few majors recently. So I'm not disappointed to draw with him. But it's disappointing to lose on shots is a bit annoying. Maybe typical of an English player on penalties.
Okay, no, that's pretty good though. So you're still doing really well. And if we go back a little bit, so because you've been in the game for a long time, but did you have or do you have any kind of like outstanding players that you consider maybe your role models?
I mean, outstanding players in terms of the best ones I've played.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the ones that kind of like, you kind of respect the most, or you admire, or you model your game, or aspects of the game on, so to speak. Like we have. Sorry, continue.
Okay, I mean, I think probably in recent times, so maybe over the past 15 years, 15, 20 years, I think playing against Flores and playing against Nastasi, I think those two players for me stand out as the best two. I know there's an awful lot of good young players now, particularly in Italy. There's a lot of great players coming through that I've not had the opportunity to play a lot of them, but I think Carlos Flores is an incredible level, unbelievable player. I mean, great to play against, but very difficult. And likewise, I think Nastasi as well. I don't think he plays as much these days, but absolutely brilliant player. And actually, the third one to add to that would be Vasco Guimaraes, who is not playing, I don't believe, at the moment. But again, he was super talented player. So probably those three players. But there were, in the 90s, there was great players to play against. I mean, there was Gilles Deloigne from Belgium. He was brilliant. Eric Nazili was a great player. Still plays now. But yeah, I'd probably pick those. But in the UK, we had some, really good players as well. So, when I was growing up playing Subbuteo, I think in England, I think the top players at the time were Justin Finch, who's been a club mate and a really good mate of mine for a long time. Bob Varney again, another great player from the table soccer days. Darren Clark is another one. So when I was sort of growing up, there were the players that were older than me that I was trying to get to their level. But they're all good friends of mine now, and there's certainly a lot of other good players that have had the opportunity to sort of play against at a similar age to me in the UK. That Casper, who moved out to Thailand, I mean, he got to a brilliant level. He got to the World Cup final in, I think it was 2007. Chris Short, another great player. Elliot's got to a really good level. Also Matt Lampitt, but he's not really playing that much anymore. So there's a lot of players I've had the opportunity to, practice with, play in tournaments. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's probably a few I've missed off that list there, but not intentionally.
No, that's quite a lot. That's great. That's excellent. So, how do you see the future of this game in England?
In England, actually,
Mm.
it's got really good the last sort of 2 years, last 2-3 years, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably a consequence of COVID. To be fair, I think in England the game has always struggled since Waddington's sort of pulled out of it, really.
Mm.
And we kind of got to the point where if there was an English tournament, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you might get a handful of players turn up. You might get 10 players turn up.
Mm.
And at the moment, it's like you can't even get into a tournament. They're sort of oversubscribed.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a good thing to hear. Yeah.
We had one last month in Stanway, I think it was. And I think it was about 45 players, but all from England, which was just sort of unheard of. So I do think during COVID, a lot of people, probably out of boredom, just search Subbuteo on Google and realize that people still play it. And we got people like Alan Lee, who's put a lot of effort into promoting the game within the UK, and he's got a lot of clubs, that probably didn't play on the circuit so much, but he's kind of got those players interested now.
Well,
so there seems to be a lot of new players, but I don't know if they are new or they've been playing for years, but they've just never got tournaments. So I think the future in the game for England is really, really bright at the moment. We've got the World Cup in 2024. That's something good and something to aim for. But yeah, I think things are going well.
Excellent. That's pretty good. And that leads me to a different tangent, but still, of course, what I was going to cover anyway. Pitches. Now, I've heard a lot of players in England prefer the, what do you call it? The Extreme Works Extreme pitch.
Yeah.
How do you see the difference in pitches, and which one do you prefer, or which ones do you prefer, or do you have any preference?
I think I prefer the Extreme Works overall in comparison to everything at the moment. But that's probably because that's the only pitch I've got. So when I flick around, it's the one I get used to. About 10 years ago, I only had an Astro pitch, and I think I had that pitch for maybe 15, 20 years. So that was the only pitch I practiced on. So if you'd asked me the question then, I would have said that. Yeah, there are quite a lot of differences now because we played the World Cup and we played on the Astro base or Astro Turf. I'm not quite sure what it's called.
Astro, yeah, it's probably the Astro Turf FT, the fast track one.
It wasn't the fast one though; it was a slow one. It was very slow.
Oh,
yeah,
was it?
So
maybe it was the what is it? What they call it? FISCT one.
And maybe it was that one because I know the one you're talking about. I think we did play on recently in Mallorca for the Europa Cup for clubs, and they were very similar to the Extreme Works.
Yeah. I actually like that one. I like the FT one, to be honest. Here in Japan, I use the FT one. I've used the Extreme Works, and they're identical in the way they play. So the only difference is the Astro Base FT one can take more punishment, it seems. So, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do like the original Astro pitch as well. So it's quite. I think the tournament in Paris next week will be on Astro pitch. The one in Bologna's on Astro pitch. So I still like those pitches because I kind of grew up playing on them. I do like the Extreme pitches because I kind of think it's a better game to watch if you're watching the game because people don't miss the ball as much. And maybe it's a bit faster, the game. The ones in Italy for the World Cup, it was quite hard to get used to them. I probably should have bought a pitch before going and practiced on that.
Yeah, probably should have.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we've all got the opportunity to, I suppose, get those pitches and train on them. I think a lot of people are doing that now.
Can you still find those old Astro pictures, the so-called originals?
To be honest, I haven't looked for them. I mean, I guess you see them now and again on eBay, or someone will turn up at a tournament with a couple of old pictures. I kind of liked them when they were really worn, though. So if you played on them for about 10 years, they become like, I suppose, fast, a bit like an Extreme Works. But sometimes you then go to a tournament and play an Astro pitch was brand new. It'd be quite sticky to play on. So.
So that's what they were referring when they called them the sticky pitches.
That would be why. But I think also they get affected a bit more by humidity in comparison to some of the newer pitches. But yeah, overall, I quite like all the pitches, even the very old ones that the table soccer players play on. The cloth pitches.
Yeah. Like kind of the one I have in the back, the winter one. Yeah.
Well, that looks interesting. That one.
Yeah, that's kind of the cloth one, because I still play the old game. I've only got into the new game basically over the last year, so to speak. So, because when I got those bases from you, I played a little bit, and then I took off for a year for various reasons, and then I just got back into it like late last year. So, good. Now, still talking about equipment, then I'll talk about other aspects of the game. Since we're talking about bases, how was your evolution from a certain base to the base that you use now, and which bases do you like?
Yeah, so I think bases has been quite interesting for me over the past 2 or 3 years. I was always, stick with the same base. So I used the heavyweight team probably from 1988 to 93, probably used the same team. Then I got the sports figures and stuck with them till about 2005. Then I used the Astro Base C3s for a couple of years. And then when Extreme Works bases became available, I'm not sure what year it was, but I think it was about 2008. I bought a set of Extreme Works, and I stuck with them right up until like maybe like a year and a half ago. And then I think just because of the lockdown, I was bored. I started buying lots of bases because I had too much time on my hands. So I tried loads and loads of different bases. And last year I used this, I think it was a Colpani 2s they were called. They were good, a good team, but kind of realized that I was just better with my Extreme Workspaces. So I've kind of gone full circle, and I'm back using a set of Extreme, I think they're called Universals. So yeah, I'm back with them.
I was talking to Kane and Ruby Matthews earlier today, and she's using Universal, but very, very light ones. Are you using light ones or heavier ones?
The ones I've recently made up are actually quite light. The team I was using a couple of years ago, which I used for a long time, I think they weighed about 2.50 if you put them on a scale with the figurine.
Okay, that's quite heavy.
And the ones I made up at the start of this year that I've been using, I think they weigh about 2.30. So, just
okay.
It doesn't sound much, but it is quite a big difference actually when you flick them. So, but they seem nice, and quite enjoying playing with them. I'm kind of promised myself I won't mess around buying any other bases now this year.
You're just gonna stick and
yeah.
Get out of it.
I do enjoy playing with that team, so I'll stick with it. I was never one for changing in the past. I only did it out of boredom through COVID.
Which team's that? Manchester United ones, or?
Well, I am a United fan, but the team I've got is just it's a yellow base with a yellow inner and a green figure, so it's
okay.
Very plain. I've never really been into like painting figures or having specific designs on bases or teams. If they flick well, and I like playing with them, and I've never really cared what they look like.
Right. Well, some people do because, like you said,
Yeah,
out of boredom, right? So people want
yeah,
to just do something still associated with the game, but now it's more the aesthetic side of things, and they get into
yeah,
it, and then they'll go back to just the plain looking one, and then oh yeah, I'll do the decal ones, and same thing with the ball, and then they realize the decals on the balls do look good, but they add a bit
yeah.
more of what do you call it?
Bit
The
more weight to it, or
hmm?
did they add a bit more weight to it? Do you think, or
I think if they put varnish on it, definitely it would
yeah,
add weight, but also unpredictability. That's the word,
yeah,
because
yeah,
when the decal maybe hits a certain part of the pitch, it may spin a bit differently or go a bit wonkier. So then they revert back to the standard match balls. So it's
that's
but
what I
it's
tend
all
to do. I think I just like playing with a plain white ball. Just sounds really boring, but it's just um, I suppose maybe I'm just used to practicing with that. So
Yeah, which is fair enough. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is about your play style. How would you describe your play style? Because everybody has, oh, maybe some people mix and match, but everybody's a little bit different.
hmm, good question. That not really thought about that. I think I'm probably more of an attacking player than a defender. Um, yeah, I think probably quick play, but possessional as well. So
Mm,
I don't like to, um, go forward with two players and then have nowhere to go and lose the ball. I
mm,
think
mm,
building attacks so you can pretty much use all your team, but play fast to try and if you play fast, 2, 3 quick flicks on the spin, you're quite likely to win free kicks for yourself
yeah, that's right.
just
Yeah.
because of the way the rules are.
Mm,
I'd say that's kind of how I'd play. I've never really sort of thought about describing it, but um, I think that's the way I play. So I attack with a lot. So I'm quite happy to attack with 8, 9, or 10, all my players, because if I lose the ball, I'll just flick everyone back. So
right.
I don't really chase the ball. If I lose the ball, I'll just get my defensive line back first and then go from there.
So maybe you've already answered it, but what's your strength in the game?
Um, ooh. I think probably playing quick to win
Mm,
free kicks. Um, it's something I suppose you don't practice, but if you play a lot of practice games like friendlies,
mm,
you naturally start to do it
mm,
without thinking about it. It's only when if somebody's maybe filmed one of your games that you realize that's what you're doing
mm.
and realize how advantageous that is for you to do that.
Good, excellent. Yeah, so I think a lot of you English players are kind of attack based, which is pretty good to see because adds a bit of flair to the game, which is good. And other countries actually play like exactly how they play football. Sometimes very defensive, very tactical with fast counterattacks. So it's always interesting to hear because when I
Yeah,
hear that, then it's like, oh yeah, actually you're mimicking your national team in style. So it's kind of funny. Yeah. So for someone that's getting into it and they want to play tournaments, but they're not sure how to develop themselves, what advice would you give?
I think the best advice is to play a lot of games. If you get the opportunity to play somebody that's better than you at a higher level, play those games more. That's how you're going to get better. You kind of just have to accept that you're gonna let a lot of goals in, but it just doesn't matter because the thing that you develop really first if you're playing players of a high level is your defending will get a lot better.
Mm,
So
mm,
you can get a practice table and flick around all you like, but the one thing you can't practice is that defending, and you can't practice pressure as well. So, you know, getting those blocks into difficult places and behind the ball when there's pressure on you is different to flicking around on the pitch on your own.
Definitely.
I think if you're just starting off or just coming into the game, just play as many games as possible. Like I said, there's things you can practice on your own. You can practice shooting and gliding, but really you want an opponent there to play. So my advice would be, just if you want to play and get to like a level where you feel comfortable playing in tournaments, just go and play as much as you can, and play in lots of tournaments as well, because again that adds it adds that experience in. So again, you can play a lot of friendlies where there's no pressure, but then you've got to go and play a tournament where there is that pressure because you want to win.
Yeah, it's a totally different game if you're playing a friendly, because you actually enjoy it. And when you're playing a tournament, you've got that fighting instinct, and so as your opponent, and it can get pretty tense. So
it can get niggly, can't it? So it's like there's a different element that you don't really have in practice. I suppose a good bit of advice is to try and get that into your practice. So if you can find someone that's competitive enough to make the friendlies a bit more competitive and take it really seriously, then that's the big plus as well.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about rules, because like you've mentioned, you've been around since the 80s and you've seen the evolution of the rules, and from where it was to where it is now. Tell us maybe a rule that you really like, and maybe a rule that you think should be tweaked, or you just don't like.
I think one rule that I liked from the old game, which I would quite like to see back in the new game, was the throw-in rule. So if you took a throw-in, your figure couldn't come onto the pitch. Do you remember that rule?
Yeah. You have to keep it
came
on
onto
the
the
side.
pitch. Yeah. So I think that was better, because right now there's not really any difference between a free kick and a throw-in. So it's quite advantageous to force a lot of throw-ins in the game now, especially as they've got the no block rule. So, if you force a throw-in, you've also got that advantage of that you don't have to take an attacking flick, so the defender doesn't get a defensive flick. So I kind of think there's probably too much emphasis on throw-ins, whereas if what's the difference now between a free kick and a throw-in? There isn't one really.
No.
So I'd quite like to see that rule back in it. I mean, I think if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I quite liked the smashing in the game, because there was I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but the rule previously with smashing, now you can only smash one player.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, you could smash as many as you wanted.
Yeah. In fact, when I started playing over here, I did that, and then I found out I was giving away too many free kicks. First time I did it, they said free flick. I said, why? And I said, smashing. What's that? What's smashing? And I had to look. Oh yeah, I didn't realize.
So I think when they brought that rule in, I was quite disappointed. However, I think after playing the new rule where you can only smash one player, I quite like it now. It doesn't bother me. I think I probably overthought it at the time, so it's not an issue anymore. I can't think of any rules I would change as such. Maybe. No, actually, no. I was going to say something else, but no, I don't mind. I don't mind the rules.
No, in fact, the smashing rule, if it depends, but in my viewpoint, it actually saves the weaker player, because a good player can just exploit, and there's so much more. They practice, so they have the accuracy in taking shots that once they get through and kicking range, it's going to be a goal. But because of that smashing rule now, it actually saves the player that is less skilled. So it's actually good in that way.
Yeah,
It makes
I,
it makes
I
it a little bit
agree.
harder to score. Yeah.
I think I agree with it now. I think 10 years ago I didn't agree with it, but then you play it and you get used to it and you kind of realize that actually it's not so bad because it's the same for everyone.
Right. But I do agree with you with the throw-in one because, yeah, there's no difference between that and a free kick. And a lot of players do
Yeah,
always try to get
okay.
that throw-in because they know they're going to get that happening, and, they can just
Yeah,
flick their
it's like,
player into position. And
should a throw in be that dangerous? And it's
mm,
like, if you're forcing a throw in, especially if you force a throw in the shooting area now, and
mm,
then you don't take a flick, and your opponent hasn't got a flick. It's just a throw-in, just like a massive advantage. But I think if your player couldn't come on the pitch, then
mm.
even if you didn't have the flick, you're not necessarily going to get the ball to where you want it to go.
No, that's right. So I agree with you there. I agree with you, which is good because I didn't actually think about that until you mentioned it. So, but Chris, now tell us a little bit more about your club.
Club, well, it changed a bit recently, so I've played for quite a few clubs over the past, 30 years or whatever it's been. So I've currently signed for Perugia, which is an Italian club.
Ah,
So that's would give me the opportunity to play in the Italian league for this season. However, I believe the Italian league's been cancelled for this season, which is really frustrating.
really? Why is that?
I'm not sure of the reasons why.
Is that a COVID issue or?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a political or if it's something else, but apparently it's not happening anyway, which is a bit strange. But so that's a bit frustrating.
It may, probably I shouldn't be saying this, it may have something to do with the Secretary of FISDEF resigning and the reasons behind it.
Possibly, yeah. Something's happened. It's frustrating, really. I was looking forward to playing that. But yeah, I mean, Perugia's a really, top Italian team. I've a lot of respect for them and the players. So I'm looking forward to playing some tournaments with them.
So you have to travel over there then quite a bit.
Yeah, so I'll go and play some whichever tournaments they're playing in Italy. Hopefully they'll come to some other places around Europe. I mean, last season I was playing with Glide, Slide, Chip and Dip, which is an English team with a stupid name.
Yeah, it was a bit funny when I heard that. Yeah.
So that's kind of like I was with Justin, Bob Varney, Elliot, Matt Lampitt, Darren Clark, a few others. But yeah, we're a good solid team, a lot of top English players, and we've done well in a lot of tournaments. But we decided just to, all have a bit of a change and go our separate ways for this season. I'm sure we'll all play again in the future at some point. But yeah, that's what's happening at the moment anyway.
Excellent. So your next tournament would be when, Chris? When?
So it was going to be the Serie A in Italy on the 10th and 11th, I think, of February. It's not now. So I'm playing in Glasgow that weekend instead. So there's the Scottish International Open. So I shall play that one. I believe there's an English one in Accrington a couple of weeks after, and then I'm going to play in Mons beginning of March.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I hear so many players are looking forward to going to. Yeah, the classic one, so to speak. Yeah. Now, maybe you have given this thought, or maybe you haven't because you're focused as a player. But what would your strategy be to get more young people involved in this game? Because we're in the digital age. You said you don't play FIFA, whatever, but a lot of the young kids are, and they don't even know about this game. And the other problem is because once Waddington kind of disappeared. All that advertising that worked kind of went with it, and we don't have that. So what are your thoughts?
It's a tricky one. I think a lot of us, particularly in the UK, have been talking about this for a long time. So when Waddingtons went, sort of mid-90s, the only reason really people, well, you got a handful of people that kept playing, and then thankfully there was people that were willing to sort of set up clubs and get a lot of youngsters involved. But that, then they grow up and stop playing. And I think the game in England struggled for quite some time. And what tends to happen is the only youngsters that come through tend to be the children of the adults that play.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you're at with it. I think the good strategy, which people have talked about and kind of trying to do in England at the moment, is to approach local football clubs and to try and get clubs within those clubs. And then you may get, you're certainly going to get people that are interested in football. And if they're interested in football, they're probably going to be interested in table football.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to watch it or have a little flick about. So I think that strategy is probably, the best way to get interest. But it is difficult. I think you actually need people that are willing to give up a lot of their time to get young players playing, because if it involves setting up clubs, and you've got that responsibility then as well. So it's not easy. I've never been involved in organising things, so I guess that's kind of selfish, but I've always been more focused on the playing side of things.
Or maybe in the future,
Yeah, it is a tricky one, I think, because like you've referred to as well, and I have, when you've got things like FIFA, if you've got, a kid at the moment and they've got the option of playing something where they can be instantly great at it and score a great goal, or they can flick some plastic around a table and the players fall all over the place and it takes them a longer period of time to get good at it, people go for the easy option, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Tricky one. I don't know if there is an ideal solution to that question.
Yeah, I think just demonstrating it and being out there and demonstrating it. And that's how you'd, by osmosis, eventually, that's how advertising works anyway. That's my viewpoint, just getting it out there.
I think the only thing I'd add to that maybe is, I sort of touched on that having it with football clubs within their grounds is obviously a good one, but certainly having venues in mainstream places. Because I remember as a kid when we played in some of the regional championships organised through Waddingtons, they'd hold them in like big shopping centres and things like that, where you've got a high footfall, so people are going to walk past and see it and maybe show some interest.
Yeah,
I think one problem we've probably had is we hide the game away in sports halls in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Which is not, good. But that's down to cost, isn't it? So if you've got a sponsor that can put you in a good place, brilliant. If you haven't, then these tournaments get, put into maybe, a social club or a sports hall, which nobody's ever going to see.
That's true. That's a good point. Excellent. So do you have any final words for the viewers? Because most of our viewers, I guess, some will be like old timers, but a lot will be like just exploring. That's the whole point of this video series, to introduce the game, get people talking about it, hear from good players like yourself, and just get hooked on it.
I would say that, if you're thinking about getting into it, it's a brilliant hobby. It's a very, very skillful game. I think a lot of people have described it as a cross between snooker and chess in the past. It really is. It's interesting. It's good fun. It's competitive. You get to meet a lot of people. You get to travel around the world doing something you enjoy. It can get expensive when you're paying for it yourself. But what I would say is if you're thinking about getting into it and you're thinking about getting to Go and play some tournaments. Practice is definitely the key. So go and play as many games as you can. Don't be afraid to mess around, change your bases as well. There's plenty of options out there. But yeah, just have fun with it really, because it's it's been a brilliant hobby to me for over 30 years, and hopefully many more as well.
Excellent. Well, that's a testimony in of itself. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed our talk today. So excellent. What are you going to do now? It's what time is it there?
It's 5:45. I'm going to have some food and go to the gym.
Excellent.
Work tomorrow.
Right. Not only are you a player, you're a fitness freak. That's great. Excellent.
All right.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. So I hope to talk to you again soon, Chris. Have a good one.
Definitely. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.